Final destination, Bloodlines 2025. Just like the previous destination film, this story tells about death that occurs not because of murder, but comes with a structured mechanism caused by a realistic series of causes and effects, thus triggering death. Let's just start the story. At the beginning of the film, we are shown a woman named Iris and her lover named Paul. There, Iris is riding in a car with her eyes closed because Paul wants to surprise her. After arriving, Iris is seen very surprised when she finds out that she was taken to the highest tower in the city, where the place is usually only intended for conglomerates. When they enter and take an elevator to the top of the building, happiness mixed with panic is clearly visible on Iris's face because the elevator is not running normally, as if giving the impression that there is something to watch out for. After they arrive at the top, Paul immediately invites Iris to the top of the building and intends to propose to her. But just as they were there, several strange events were seen around them, starting from a woman who found her hat falling off and a small child who was jokingly throwing coins from the top of the building.
Kill somebody.
Oh, I'm so sorry, of course.
After the boy was reprimanded by the officer, Paul continued his intention to propose, and of course Iris happily accepted it. At that happy moment, Iris and Paul intended to go downstairs to dance. But before they left, the little boy was seen throwing a coin again, where the coin was sucked into the building's ventilation hole and clogged a fan. When Iris and Paul entered the dance room where the floor was made of glass, suddenly the glass began to crack slowly. Not because of the coin, but because a lamp material with a hard and sharp material fell onto the glass floor. No one realized the floor was starting to crack and the coin that had been stuck in the fan was thrown and hit a tube filled with gas until it leaked. And suddenly, one of the floors there collapsed. Panic began to occur. People were seen running and a chef passed the fire to a grandmother who ran towards the gas leak. And as a result, the building exploded, without a single one of them surviving. It turned out that all the events earlier were just a dream of a woman named Stefani. So what does the dream mean? It is known that Stefani has had dreams many times, and the dreams are very disturbing to her sleep patterns and daily life. Then what is surprising is why the woman in her dream is named Iris, because Iris is her grandmother, who she has never seen since she was little. Finally, Iris, who now lives in a boarding house because she is studying, decides to go home with the aim of looking for clues from her family. When she arrived home, she asked her father who her grandmother really was. Her father did not give any answer. So Stefani invited her younger brother named Charlie to go to her uncle's house, who was her father's older brother. When we arrived there, we were introduced to several children of Stefani's uncle. The first child was named Eric. The second child was a woman named Julia, and the third child was Billy. Not long after, Stefani immediately met her uncle, and without further ado asked where her grandmother was. But here it seemed that her uncle did not want to discuss grandmother. Finally, Stefani told that she often dreamed about her grandmother, and also a building called Skywave. Hearing the word Skywave, her uncle was surprised. Finally, the uncle gave the address. But there he told Stefani that there was no point in meeting her grandmother, because she had been mentally ill for a long time and lived alone in a remote house. Without paying attention to her uncle's words, Stefani immediately went to her grandmother's house to get clues about the meaning of the dream that always haunted her. Arriving there, her grandmother greeted her with a happy face because she had never met Stefani. There, Stefani immediately told her about the dreams she always had. Iris also revealed that all the dreams Stefani had were realities in the past that should have happened, but Iris managed to prevent them. At that time, Iris, who was on the top of the building, had a terrible feeling. Quickly, Iris immediately stopped the child who was about to throw the coin. After that, Iris immediately entered the building and told everyone to evacuate before the glass floor collapsed.
I saved a lot of lives that night. Additional renovation.
Thanks to Iris's sense of sight, everyone in the building was saved. But Iris's actions in saving everyone were not liked by the supernatural creature that we can just call death. Finally, even though Iris managed to save everyone, death still started to finish them all off one by one in sequence. Well, that's why Iris stayed in the house so that death couldn't approach her. Hearing that, Stefani immediately thought that her uncle's words that Iris was insane were true. But even though Stefani considered her crazy, Iris still tried to show the truth of what had happened. Iris also showed a thick book containing notes from the analysis of how a small thing would be used as an opportunity by death to kill his targets. But the longer they chatted, the more Stephanie seemed convinced that Iris was crazy. Finally, Stephanie decided to leave Iris's house. Before leaving, Iris begged Stephanie to take the book to study, but Stephanie, who didn't believe it, still left. So Iris was determined to go out to give her the book. Actually, Iris knew that if she left the house, something would definitely happen to her. But for the safety of her family, Iris was determined to go out and give Stephanie the book.
This book is a life. You still don't believe me? Step back. Why?
Finally, with what she had just seen, Stephanie now believed what Iris said was the truth. In short, Iris's funeral was held. And after the event, her uncle held a small barbecue in the yard, maybe to lighten the mood and remember Iris in a warmer. Meanwhile, on the other hand, Stephanie was still lost in her thoughts. She read and tried to understand the contents of each page of the book Iris gave her. Although she still half believed it, there was still a curiosity that continued to draw her deeper into the mystery. Stephanie began to wonder in her heart, if it's true that death is targeting Iris's family, why is it only happening now? Why not before? But the more she delved into the book, everything began to make sense. It was written there that death did not come all at once. It came one by one in an order that was still unknown. There Iris wrote, "If Iris has died, then death will come to the next target." Because that made sense to Stephanie, and now Iris was gone. Stephanie began to worry that if the writing was not nonsense, then someone from her family would be the next victim. Stephanie immediately rushed to her uncle's house where they were having a barbecue. Meanwhile, at her uncle's house, the event had just begun. Billy was seen putting a bucket of ice cubes into the table box. Eric was putting a drinking bottle on a brick. Then Billy accidentally dropped a glass, and without realizing it when cleaning up the shards, there was a piece of glass mixed with the ice cubes. And finally, not long after that, the glasses were filled with ice cubes where one of the glasses contained a piece of glass.
Oh my God, there's a bug.
The barbecue activity was fun, but behind it, a tense situation began to occur without being realized. Billy was seen playing on a trampoline, jumping up and down without realizing there was a pitchfork underneath him. Then the glass filled with glass turned out to be held by Stefani's father. And luckily, when he was about to drink, he was called by Billy. This is where the chaos began. The bottle that Eric had put down fell because it was hit by a basin. Unfortunately, the bottle fell right on a device that accidentally turned on. The device emitted a gust of wind through a long hose, and the hose began to move slowly without anyone realizing it.
It's okay.
The funeral for Stephanie's uncle was held. After the funeral, Stefani studied the patterns from the book Iris gave her again. There she began to discover that death would come in order of age, from the oldest to the youngest. Stephanie immediately explained the pattern she found to all her family, but it turned out that none of them believed it, and Stephanie was considered crazy like Iris. According to the pattern she learned, Stephanie explained that Eric was the next target, but Eric and his family didn't believe it. Then the gathering broke up because they thought Stephanie was crazy. In short, now we are taken to a place where Eric works. When Eric was sitting and making a tattoo with his father's name as a souvenir, he stood up and pushed the chair back, causing one of the displays to fall. Not long after, suddenly one of the fan chains fell and immediately got stuck in Eric's nose piercing. Finally, a tense, unreasonable situation occurred, starting from the display that fell and the chain that got stuck in the nose, until one of the fuels spilled and a fire broke out. In short, the next day, Stefani, who heard the news of the fire, immediately went to Eric. But strangely, Eric was still safe. After that, Stefani was seen worried and forbade Eric from acting carelessly. When someone plays ball in the yard, Stefani tells Eric to stay away because she is afraid that the pattern of deaths could start from the ball. When the garbage truck passes by, Stefani warns him again not to come any closer. Eric feels uncomfortable and thinks Stefani is getting crazier. Not long after, Julia, who had just left the house to jog, was seen running alongside a garbage truck. Then suddenly,
For our family.
Julia got into the trash can and was put into a trash box where the box was a crushed trash box. Eric, Julia, and Charlie immediately chased the truck to save her, but unfortunately the driver was wearing a headset so he didn't hear her. Finally, Julia had to become a victim. After losing Julia, the family gathered again and asked if it was true that her family was being hunted. Why was Eric still safe? That's where Eric's mother admitted that Eric was actually the child of an affair, so it was possible that it was his turn to go straight to Julia. Hearing all that, the family believed the theory written in Iris's book, and Billy seemed scared because now it was his turn. All of them immediately tried to find a way to stop this disaster. They opened the book again and studied together. In her book, Iris wrote that there was actually one name with the initials JB, who managed to survive death's pursuit. Maybe there will be a clue if Stefani meets JB and asks how she survived all the incidents. Not long after, Stefani and her family immediately sought information from this person named JB and went straight to him. JB seems to be a doctor. There he tells that when the incident occurred in the Skywave building, JB was there. He was one of the children who was successfully helped by Iris. Thanks to that incident, JB grew up and became friends with Iris, even offering some events. And it turns out that he also helped make Iris a house as a fortress of her safety. There JB explained that there were only two ways to survive. The first way, they had to engineer death, or in other words, have to be in a coma. Or the second way, they had to take someone else's life so that death would stop the curse. Because after this it was Billy's turn, JB suggested making Billy into a coma by drinking poison and preparing the antidote. Finally, Eric immediately carried out the plan by entering the room with the MRI medical device, where the device had a magnetic field. There, Eric gave Billy a peanut because Billy was allergic to peanuts and prepared to give him the antidote. But suddenly the MRI machine turned on just because Eric closed the door too hard. They didn't realize that the machine continued to increase, so that its magnetic power was able to attract all the metals nearby. And because Eric's body was filled with piercings, finally the piercing metals began to be pulled and even pressed Eric and Billy. In short, because the oldest family was gone, now it was Stefani's family's turn. But not Stefani's father, because Stefani's father was outside the family, even though he was a husband, but he was not a pure descendant. There, Stefani's mother took the initiative to keep her children safe. She wanted to hide in Iris's house first, so that death couldn't get there. That way, Stefani and her sister could still live normally. But when they were going to the house, Stefani didn't realize that the coin in Iris's book fell and was picked up by an old woman. In short, they arrived at Iris's house. But Stefani had a feeling that death had started his action for the next target. Stefani broke through the entrance gate and stopped next to the puddle of water. After that, Stefani let her mother into the house. But because it was triggered by a short circuit, the house suddenly exploded and even her mother was hit by an electric pole. Finally, the mother died. And because of the explosion, Stefani drowned in the puddle of water because the seatbelt could not be removed. Charlie was seen trying to save Stefani, who looked lifeless. But luckily, thanks to Charlie's efforts, Stefani was able to survive again. There they also assume that the curse is gone, because Stefani thinks that she was in a coma and successfully returned to the world, and will be able to live normally because the curse is gone.
You died. She saved us. Let's go home.
In short, our story is taken to an event where Charlie will propose to his girlfriend somewhere. There Stefani meets Charlie's girlfriend's father, who is a doctor. It seems that he knows what happened to Charlie and Stefani yesterday. There he explained that the incident Stefani could not be said to be a clinical death, because medically all of that was still considered normal when someone experienced excessive water intake into their body. And at the same time, the grandmother who was taking the coin at that time dropped the coin. Unexpectedly, the coin rolled until it hit a railroad track. Hearing the doctor's statement that she had never been clinically dead, Stefani immediately panicked. And suddenly, at the same time, the train that was located close to Stefani and Charlie's current position derailed towards it, so that Stefani and Charlie could not avoid their deaths. And this film ends. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Amri Film channel so you don't miss the next movie recaps.